Welcome to Unlock 360, the podcast for champions of public education. Here we explore the connection between leadership, teaching, and learning, and reveal the keys to getting better results for all students. Each episode highlights a change maker who's turning vision into action and creating schools where both educators and students thrive. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Wendy York Davoud, and today I'm super excited to be joined by Ana Aleman-Putman, the Superintendent of South Haven Public Schools. Welcome, Ana.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're so excited to learn about you and your district. Will you kick us off with a brief 30-second intro about yourself?
Sure. Well, one of the exciting things for me personally being the superintendent of South Haven Public Schools is it's a full circle moment for me because I actually went to school here. And all of my siblings, I have 10 brothers and 4 sisters, and all of them graduated from South Haven Public Schools. So to be back here as a superintendent is like it's exciting and wonderful and like a crowning jewel for my family and for myself. I have been a parapro. I started as a parapro here actually in South Haven Public Schools. And then I've been a teacher and a principal, and I've been central office staff, and now I'm a superintendent. And it's just been such a joy to be in this career of education and to get to work with children and teachers. I've loved it my whole life. I've always said, how often do you get to do something that you love to do and get paid to do it? So
It's really, isn't that awesome? It's amazing when you find that love, that passion, and then you get to do that for your job, for your career.
I
Yeah.
feel so lucky. I really do my whole life.
What inspired you to go into education?
So being one of 15, my parents were migrant workers, and they traveled all over the country. One day here in Michigan, my mom, she just said to my dad, "That's it. I cannot continue to pull the children, from school to school, and they need to get an education because they can work with their back or they can work with their brains. And my children are smart, and so we're going to settle here." And it happened to be South Haven, Michigan. And so the power of education and how it changes cyclical poverty and illiteracy. And even though my mother herself was illiterate, she understood that being in school would change the path of our lives. So it was my parents. When I was hired for this role, as soon as I was called, I went right to the cemetery where they're buried, and I just gave them thanks. I sat for a moment with them and I said, "Thank you for being such good parents." And here they are in the school system where I am a superintendent, and their gravesite is here. And I just went and I said, "Thank you. Thank you for being awesome parents and for the education you gave me." So
Oh, I love that so much. What a beautiful story. Yes. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
yeah.
And, just a bit of background too for the audience. And South Haven Public Schools is serving approximately 1,700 students and has about 330 staff members, and proudly boasts a 99% graduation rate. So lots of really wonderful things are happening there. Anna, will you share with us when you first stepped into the role as the superintendent, and what were what was what were your initial priorities leading the district?
So one of them was, even though I grew up here, I moved away for about 25 years or so. So coming back was getting to know the district again. It is a lakeside town. So I come every summer, but it's very different being here in the summer than it is during the winter. What that looks like in the winter is very different than what that looks like in the summer. So I have my whole life, I did move away for 25 years and came back. I've come every summer, but re-engaging with the community during the summertime, or sorry, during the winter, and going into businesses that I typically don't ever go to in the summertime because it's too busy. So, like, knowing, who the shopkeepers are, and visiting those kind of, businesses I don't usually go to, as well as getting to know the family. So spending a lot of time at basketball games, at choir music. I'm a big fan of all those, of arts, and getting to know the staff and the students. So I did spend a lot of time in the schools. At the end of the year last year, it was kind of funny. One of the students, when they were showing pictures of all the staff, one of the students said, "It's the cafeteria lady." It was actually me because that's what I spent a lot of time with them. So that was one of them. And then getting to know like where we were at academically, and what was like the curriculum, and where did we need to go. So that first year last year was really a lot of like getting to know where we're at and where we needed to go.
Okay, and I understand, you shared with me, before we started the
Yeah.
show that you all are in the process of developing, a new strategic plan or revamping your strategic plan. Will you share a bit about, what it's like leading that process?
Sure. That's been a really exciting topic to work on actually, because this year we really focused on I was able to create a team. We call it the Vision Alignment Team, and that was community members, some teachers, some of my principals, and we spent time just looking at what were some of our really things that we did really, really well. And then we looked at where do we want our students to go, and then I took it back to the principals. We did some things with the principals and my leadership team, and then we had teacher focus groups, and the teachers could come after school and give some input on that. And then at the last week of school, we had, surveys. We did teacher surveys, parent surveys, student surveys, and right now we're waiting for the community survey. And actually, the community survey included parents. So, I'm excited to get that all put together and get the final results of that so that we can see what that's gonna look like. So really focusing on, like, student agency, and we call it the RAM way, like, what do we want our students to leave with? What do we want them to get out of being here in South Haven Public Schools? And what do we want instruction to look like? So I don't have the final product yet. I'm waiting to get that back, and we're gonna work with my leadership team to give input on that and then present it to the board and then ta-da! So I'm excited by that.
Yes, okay, and you mentioned student agency, and student voice, so that is one of the big pieces of where you think you all are heading based on what you've
Yeah,
learned?
that and, a sense of belonging for all students and making sure they have everything they need to be academically successful. South Haven does the schools and the teachers and the community does a really good job of wrapping around the school system. It's a smaller town, and the stores, the businesses, they all really step up, and the restaurants, and if we need anything, they're here to provide for the students. Um, but for me, the agency for the students, like, what does instruction look like? What keeps you engaged? What would you want your teachers to know? So one of my goals personally was to provide to create a student, we call it a student action committee, yes, and that's a group of students, and we just from ninth through their junior year, and to meet with them once a month, and for them to, like, create focus groups, I'm working with a professor from MSU to create questions like, "What does this look like?" And it's still work in progress to get feedback from them, but just spending a lot of time with students and asking them, "What does it mean to be engaged in your learning, and what would you change about your learning?" And them still working on that, but also, and this is huge, is, like, making sure that every student has someone, and that's been, like at the high school, we have a new principal, and I guess I should add that too. It's been a year of transition, like a year/year and a half, because we got a new principal at the high school, we got a new superintendent, we got a new, principal at our 4-5 school. So it's been a lot of new things for our community, and that's been a big change for everybody. So it's getting used to different people in big positions.
Yeah, yeah. I'm yes, that and that is a real challenge that many districts face, as, some folks decide to retire or move on, have some change careers, just, leaders are always, coming in and out and, moving and that reminds me of, developing leadership, sharing that across teams. Will you tell us a little bit about the leadership teams in your district?
Sure. So, I have what is called an SLT, so the Student Leadership Superintendent Leadership Team. So, every Wednesday, I meet with my leadership team, and that consists of myself, my superintendent of instruction, my facilities person, and my CFO. And then we have our instructional leadership team that we meet once a month with them, and then we have my secondary principals team, and we have our, elementary principals team, and then we have at every building, we have leadership teams as well, and then I also have a district leadership team, and that is a team that we meet. We just met, was it the last week of May, because they're working on strengthening our MTSS system, so that was one of actually my focuses as well, was really looking at what do we need to do to strengthen our academic scores. And one of them was looking at the multi-tiered systems of support. And so South Haven really had some really good things going right before COVID. And this is what I learned talking to like some of the teachers and the principals and my superintendent of instruction. They were really jamming. They had really good things going, and then COVID hit, and then a lot of things happened and lots of change in leadership. So we're kind of getting back to that, looking at what are our standards? What does our first tier look like? What does our second tier look like? And then our most intensive kids. And then how do we know? So really digging into our different data. And so with my district leadership team in the last week of May, we did what's called a DCA, looking at what are the different systems we have and how is that working and how do we know and what is the proof that these things are working. And so it was interesting to like score ourselves. And then in the fall, we will look at that and see what are some of the goals that we need to set based on that and moving forward. So, and all the buildings also did something like that at a smaller scale and setting goals for themselves. So they'll have goals to begin with. And that's kind of where we start. So it's been a lot of work and a lot of inquiry for them. And so yeah, it's been exciting.
That's powerful stuff. Yes, like, okay, what are we doing? What's working? How do we know?
Yes.
What's the evidence lab to support that? What do we need to change? And using that inquiry
Yes.
process to set goals. Super powerful stuff. Anna, I am also now thinking about your value around cognitive dissonance amongst adults.
Yes.
Will you talk a little bit about that
Sure.
for us, please?
That is super important, I think, in any workplace. So it is important to be able to be ask questions, to go back and forth, to have discussion about if you have questions about things. So cognitive dissonance to me is to be able to really like have healthy, lively discussion about things that perhaps you don't disagree about. But to me, it has to be like based in research, based on or wonderings, like come from curiosity, like, well, tell me more about that. What does that mean? Or show me where it says that. What does the research say that? Because our
Yeah.
students are changing all the time and we have to be learning more all the time about, okay, what does the research say about this? What does the research say about this? And it is when we can ask questions. And sometimes it does get lively, right? And that is okay. I think people tend to look at when you're having this cognitive dissonance because you're not agreeing about things as conflict, but it's not. And it's healthy and really important for like a school system, I think personally, to be able to engage in cognitive dissonance and children as well so they understand that that's how we really change things is to challenge each other, and come from, like, this curiosity, "What do you mean? Tell me more. Show me that. Where does it say that in the research?" kind of thing, and so that is really important to me, and I always, like, with my leadership team when we're talking here, even in our smaller meetings, I'm like, "Say more about that," or "Tell me, show me that," or "Where did you see that?" And I encourage, like, my principals as well to, like, "Let's engage in that. This is good for us. Say more." And I may be wrong, like, I never think that I know everything or that I am right, and I've always said I feel like I'm very collaborative, and I look to my team because, I think what did I just hear? That it doesn't have being a leader doesn't have a title, right? It just means, like, be to me, being collaborative and talking to everyone and looking for input, so
Yeah, it's really not about your title. That's so true. And it's not about what you know and yeah, none of us know it all and the team is makes us strong and helps us to be better. You one of the things you mentioned there about the research, I'm certainly not going to challenge because I am a huge John Hattie fan myself and a believer in the high impact practices, collective teacher efficacy, and teacher clarity. I understand that you've done a lot of work, your district around teacher clarity, and are continuing that work. Will you tell us more about that?
100%. You are speaking my language here. John Hattie, I've seen him in person, I think 2 or 3 times, and so one of his highest impact strategies is, teacher clarity. So it's all about, do the students know what they're learning? So a piece of that is, learning targets, and then the other piece of that is success criteria. So we have spent a lot of time, especially my superintendent of instruction, like, creating, professional development around that. So at their professional learning communities, the teachers have and the principals, they watch like little videos about, what is a learning target and what's a good learning target, and then the success criteria. What does that look like, and how do children know that they've learned it? And then what we've done after they've watched it, and because I wanna make sure that we're doing the right thing. The principals and myself and my assistant superintendent is we'll walk around to all the different buildings and we'll gather data for ourselves. Like, we've told the teachers very clearly, "This is not about you, it's not about evaluating." It's like, "Are we doing the right
Yeah.
PD? What do the success criteria look like? What does, the learning targets look like? What do we need to do differently?" Because we know that John Hattie, the research says that if the children know what they're learning and when they know that they've got it, that's going to really change the academics, the outcomes. It makes a difference. And that the whole collective efficacy piece that we're all doing it, that it's going to make a change in the outcomes of our academic achievement. So still this is our first year. So it's like, we're just beginning. No, don't stress about it, but I want to see it all. I want to see it. I want to see it in all the classrooms. So we've started this year and we have seen it in all the classrooms. We're still moving in that direction, but we're really focused on that. And that's the whole collective efficacy piece.
And it's so important and it seems simple, but it's not necessarily simple, right?
No.
Uh, but yeah, kids need to know what they're supposed to learn and how they're gonna show whether or not, they've learned it and, what success looks like.
Exactly, and I think teachers are really hard on themselves with our success criteria and our learning targets. They wanna get it just right, and,
Yeah.
and this is a hard part. I'm like, "Don't be so hard," because it's a little easier than you think it is, and I think that's kind of our next step is, like, getting teachers into each other's classrooms to see, "Look at here's a really this is a really great looking success criteria and a learning target, and it's a
Yeah,
lot easier than you think it is." So, but they are hard on themselves
right.
because, they have high expectations for themselves.
Of course, yes, and one of my favorite, phrases to use with teams is, it's progress, not perfection. If we're trying to get it all just right, we may get stuck, and we're gonna learn as we go. Let's get a little bit better. Let's make progress and keep going and getting better as we go.
Exactly, just
Yeah.
moving forward.
Mhm. Yes. And that reminds me of, where like what are some of the real challenges that you all are facing and how are you working through them?
I had a couple of things. Well, one of the biggest things is goodness, is that we are a lakeside town. So it's beautiful. You come to South Haven, Michigan, any time of the year, it's gorgeous. It doesn't matter. It's colder, sometimes and other times, but being said, it is affordable housing for teachers is a real issue. Many of our teachers and our principals, they travel a half hour or more to come to work because they can't afford to buy a home here. But I am working closely with our city manager, our mayor, our realtors around town to try and fix that because we need to keep our teachers here. We need to make sure that they can live in the town that they work in. So it has been a problem for a while. I feel like we're moving in the right direction, having more discussion about what that looks like and how we're gonna make that happen, because that helps with teacher retention. And it's a lovely town. They want to stay here, and that helps with achievement, that helps with everything if we can keep our teachers here. Um, so that's one of the biggest problems. I think the other problem, well, in the last year and this year was that we didn't get our state budget until late. And that was huge because it affects how we pay for things. It affects how we pay for teachers.
Yeah.
It affects everything. So that's been a concern. We're watching the budget this year. Because it was supposed to be on time, and it sounds like right now they're having discussion if it is going to be on time. Right now, we're like 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks to go, and it sounds like there's a lot of people not in agreement on how that's gonna look like. So, yeah, that's kind of the scary thing, but I think and the other thing I want to share was resources. We're considered a rural town, and because of that, sometimes it's hard to find resources like mental health resources or if a family needs something, we have to travel or they have to travel a little further. I have to call to towns like it could be like St. Joe or Holland, as opposed to something right here in town if it were a bigger town. We do have, some partners and agencies here, but it's just a little trickier if we were a little bigger, so
Yes. And I've come across that, similar challenges, with, in meeting and, interviewing other superintendents from rural districts. The resource challenge can be, very real and also, retaining teachers is interesting that your cost of living is high, and so it's harder for teachers to buy housing or find housing there. I'm hopeful that you are able to, get some help with some of the local businesses and come up with a solution there.
everybody wants the same thing, we really do. I mean, it's really nice to have this really good partnership with the city and with, um, the mayor. We all want to keep our teachers here. It's really, really important. We've got really great teachers who really care about
Yeah.
students, and we wanna keep them here with us, so
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. As you're, looking ahead to the coming school year, where are you heading? Where do you see the district going in the year to come and or after?
So, um, this year was a big year because we had all of our schools, from elementary to high school, selecting curriculum. We didn't have every age group selected curriculum, and I'm really looking forward to everybody implementing that curriculum with fidelity. We're not adding anything new. This is that we're going to focus on our clarity, and our collective efficacy, and then implementing our curriculum with fidelity. And then just continue to focus on it. How does that affect our achievement? Um, how does that
Yeah.
affect, like, our multi-tiered systems of support? So our MTSS system, because now we have what we need, and then looking at what does that look like for our teachers and our principals? What do I need to do with my district leadership team to make sure they have everything they need? Because, of course, with new curriculum come professional development. So, are
Yeah,
we bringing in enough professional development so that they can implement our curriculum with fidelity? And there's gonna be a lot of questions around that because we did have some teachers pilot it, but not everybody, and we don't know what questions are gonna pop up or what maybe there's gonna be some holes. We hope not because we did have people teachers pilot it, and they asked good questions, so that's gonna be our goal, really. We don't wanna I personally and my assistant, superintendent, we don't wanna put anything else on it because, if you put too many initiatives and nothing gets done well, so we're just really focusing on the
right.
curriculum that we have in all of our buildings from elementary through high school and doing that with fidelity and making sure we support that.
Did you all adopt, new curriculum in English language arts, in mathematics, in
English
science, and
language
which
arts mostly, we did that, and I'm thinking we did that I know we did that at the high school, at the elementary, at the middle school, was it math? Um, I'm not the expert on that, but I know ELA was the majority of it.
okay, that's exciting. It is always both, exciting and can be overwhelming, and yes, comes some lots of learning, but teachers like new stuff and so do kids, so
Yes,
that's good.
yes, as long as it comes with support, I feel like, because sometimes I feel like we throw things at teachers and we're like, "Do this," and we don't give them the professional development around it, and so then that's not fair to them, so.
No, you're right. You are so right about that. I'm thinking about just all the cool things you've got going, the culture of cognitive dissonance and, asking questions, the teams that you have in place, and the way that you all are really evaluating what you're doing, how well it's working, keeping kids at the forefront. Where it just sounds like such a wonderful place. Where could people go if they wanna learn more? Maybe they're looking for a new home as a teacher or as a principal or, a leader in the system, as a paraprofessional, or maybe they, are looking for a new place to send their
Well,
kiddos.
our social media sites are really big. I have my assistant is really great at keeping those up, so they can go to any of our Facebook or Instagram or to our website. It's shps.org, or Southern Public Schools, and any one of those, you just Google it and they will pop up. I did want to add that we're so fortunate here because for being a small district, we have some really great thriving clubs that other school districts don't have. We have the History Club, which is right now, I think they're on the East Coast doing something super cool. We've got our robotics is thriving, um, like, our bowling club we've got bowling club, we've got some really great clubs that are doing great things, and we had so many of our athletics that went to state this year, so I think a big piece of that is because so many of our teachers and our coaches invest in our students, so I just love the fact that we have these like, a history club, like, who does like, what school has a history club, So, yeah, that's what I really have loved I chew about being back here is learning these clubs that exist that are so there's a place for everybody, and that's been one of my own personal things is that everybody feel a sense of belonging, and, I should add that that's also gonna be one of our focuses for next year is making sure that every child feels that sense of belonging and that we're not leaving anybody out, so.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and, I appreciate that, and I'm sure our audience does too. Ana Aleman-Putman, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show, and I want to give you the opportunity to shout out to someone who's had a real, impact on your career as an educator or as an educational leader.
Oh, that's a hard one. I've been so lucky to have, so many good people that have guided me, but I'm gonna give a shout out to someone here from South Haven Public Schools, actually. She was my kindergarten teacher. Her name was Barb Dean. Being 1 to 15, we didn't have a lot of money, and she was always so kind and thoughtful to me, and she just poured into me, like, a love of education, a love of, like, reading, and also just her kindness, like, when it was cold outside, she would make sure that I was warm and bundled up, and when I became a superintendent, she came to come visit me. She came and she brought me some flowers, and it was just, like, a full circle moment for me, and she recently passed away, but I felt so lucky that she was still here, and I was able to say thank you for everything that you've done to touch so many children, but especially I started with her as a kindergarten student, and now I'm here back where I started, and so her name was Barb Dean, so I would love to give a shout out to her, and she was an amazing woman, and I was lucky to then her.
Barb, I hope you are smiling down from heaven, and, I hope that your family hears this and knows how appreciated you were.
She was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining us today. To our audience, that's a wrap. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on Unlock 360. If this conversation sparked new thinking, share it with a colleague and keep the dialogue going in your school district. Public education is complex work, and progress happens when leadership and teaching move together. I'm Wendy York Davoud. Until next time, keep building the systems that unlock what's possible, because strong leadership drives deeper learning.